Good evening. Thank you for taking time this evening to join us for our virtual presentation of the Endview Concept. I'd like to thank the city's Department of Communications and Newport News TV for its support in hosting this session tonight. It would not have been possible without them. We're here today to share the concept that has been developed for the Economic Development Authority's Endview tract, and I'm joined by several panelists who I will introduce momentarily. Your input is important, and we want to hear from you. We appreciate your participation and engagement as we utilize this virtual means of communication and presentation. As the presentation progresses this evening, please feel free to chat on Facebook Live. To familiarize everyone with the site we are discussing, the property, shown outlined in red, is located at 350 Yorktown Road. The Endview tract surrounds the 25-acre Endview House property. It is bound by Jefferson Avenue, Yorktown Road, Crawford Road, and abuts Newport News Park. It is also at the Lee Hall exit off of Interstate 64. We're joined today by Florence Kingston, Secretary-Treasurer of the Economic Development Authority and Director of the Department of Development. At this time, I would ask Ms. Kingston to share additional detail about the EDA's role in this project.
Thank you, Derek. Our interest in developing this parcel is to create new, high-quality housing within the city of Newport News, which will be attractive to a diverse range of potential homeowners and leverage the site's unique placemaking opportunities. In 2018, the EDA solicited responses to a request for qualifications for a design development build team for the development of the EDA's Endview tract. Through the RFQ process, in June 2019, the EDA selected Weldon Field Development as the preferred developer for 350 Yorktown Road. Weldon Field expressed a creative vision and imagination for the site and demonstrated a willingness to work closely with city stakeholders and citizens. Weldon Field has an experienced and talented team, and we're very excited working with them to develop the property. Following their selection last July, we hosted a community listening session to get preliminary feedback about thoughts and comments on the proposed development. These comments were considered throughout the creation of the development concept. Through the end of 2019 and this year, the EDA has worked with Weldon Field to initiate and complete a tree survey of the property, as well as wetlands delineation. These assessments were used, along with other site data like easements, utilities, etc., to identify constraints and opportunity to lay out the development in a manner that makes sense based upon topography, constraints, and resources. Weldon Field and Land Planning Solutions have been able to take this information and create a plan that really takes advantage of the existing amenities and resources, especially Newport News Park, and we're excited to share this concept today.
Thank you, Ms. Kingston. With that, I would now like to turn the presentation over to Mr. Brian Rowe, Regional Partner with Weldon Field & Rowe, so that he can share more about their process and vision for the property, including the concept plan.
Thank you very much, Derek. After being selected by the Economic Development Authority on June of last year as the developer partner for the project, the Weldon Field & Rowe team has remained engaged and excited as we have been working on the Endview project master planning. The Weldon Field team is made up of multiple professional advisors and consultants, including Land Planning Solutions. Land Planning Solutions will handle all land planning and civil engineering for the project. We also have RBA Architecture on the team. RBA will develop all architectural design criteria and will have a seat on the architectural review board as well. Please allow me to take a few moments to give you some brief history on Weldon Field. More than 40 years ago, Weldon Field began a family-owned business in Birmingham, Alabama. Over the years, Weldon Field has grown into a diverse group of companies specializing in property management, banking, real estate development and construction, as well as hotel development and management, and also multifamily financing, development, and acquisition. Weldon Field has earned a reputation of integrity, fairness, and ingenuity through generations of real estate development experience. With nationwide operations and an extensive roster of highly satisfied clients and residents, This family-owned business has achieved a solid record of success through diligent planning, conservative financial underwriting, and careful execution. I am the regional partner for Weldon Field and Row, which is our Virginia operation. I'm a lifelong resident of Hampton Roads and have built more than 1,500 homes in Virginia from Richmond to Virginia Beach. As regional partner of Weldon Field and Row, I direct all phases of site selection, land acquisition, design and sale of residential and commercial development parcels. On the spectacular Endview property, our ultimate goal through the process of developing the master plan for the community has been to cast a clear vision for the site that aligns with the visions of the EDA, the city, and ours as developer and builder. We are planning an exciting community that contains multiple neighborhood clusters separated with heavy green bands, open space, landscaping, multiple gathering areas, ponds and water features, along with sitting areas, pavilions, and arbors. These clusters of neighborhoods will each be unique architecturally, but will carry a very strict core theme. Themed architectural guidelines will be developed for the community, and each neighborhood and product type will complement the other. We will make Endview to be a high-quality, predominantly single-family community that will surely capture the attention of the buying public. The Endview project design will focus on the following core themes: a connection to the natural environment, both on-site and to sites immediately adjacent to us; development in harmony with nature; a focus on lifestyle, not just product, with walking and biking trails, including a connection to the Birthplace of America Trail. Pocket parks and tree save areas will also abound. Dedicated areas for passive amenities such as bench seating and fire pit areas, where spontaneous gatherings can occur, literally knitting together the community's social fabric. Core themes will also include a sense of defined neighborhoods that connect with the overall theme of the community and are consistent with our overarching architectural themes. Appropriate active amenities to broaden the appeal to the community, to the surrounding areas, and the buying public. A diverse product line designed to appeal to a variety of demographics and incomes. Respectful land planning that honors Endview with inclusion of educational stations that identify not only native flora, but also historically significant archaeological sites on the property. Residents will also have a pedestrian connection to the magnificent Newport News Park, along with walking and biking connectivity to the historic Lee Hall area. Endview will provide a broad range of product types, price points, and spectacular amenity structures. As we developed the Endview conceptual plan, we worked very closely with Residential Data Bank, RDB, the premier residential market analyst firm in Virginia. RDB had the opportunity to extensively review the elements of our proposed Endview community, and they believe our Endview plan is well designed and is positioned to capture a buyer who demands the following: consistency in architectural theming, a buyer who welcomes the opportunity to enjoy the rich tapestry offered by living among people of varying socioeconomic and demographics, a buyer who desires a more organic connection to the in-place and surrounding environment, and a buyer who seeks a social connection with their neighbors and the opportunity to enjoy both planned and spontaneous activities offered through the inclusion of both passive and active amenities. The Weldon Field team remains excited to continue developing the Endview project and concept plan, and working closely and frequently with the local communities, the EDA, and the City of Newport News to finalize the design and to bring this one-of-a-kind community to life. Thank you so much for allowing me to share with you this evening. At this point, I'm going to turn the technical portion of our presentation over to Melissa Venable with Land Planning Solutions. Melissa?
Thank you, Brian. The site is a very significant area for Newport News, and therefore our approach began with a significant site analysis. This included a tree survey that took several weeks to complete. This was boots on the ground, and that allowed us to identify substantial tree save areas on site. We identified important viewshed areas to be preserved, historical areas of significance, connections to the boat trail, which is the Birthplace of America Trail, and to the Newport News Park. Also to Endview, which is right within the site, and the major roadway areas along the property. We also identified utility connection areas, easements, and drainage areas. With our analysis in mind, we developed a concept plan that created neighborhoods surrounded by open space, save areas, and proposed ponds for drainage. We mapped connections through the development to lead neighbors and visitors to the Newport News Park, to the boat trail, and to a host of internal amenities. 2 major entrances are planned, one from Yorktown Road and another from Jefferson Avenue. Both main entrances would highlight the preservation of land as opposed to the built environment. You'll see the next slide. There we go. Along Yorktown Road, the entrance planned highlights the view shed to the historic Endview home, along with a park-like setting in front of a small townhouse community that has rear-loaded product proposed. And from Jefferson Avenue, you would drive through a park setting with tree save on one side of the road and a planned pond on the other side of the road. From both entrances, you will see that we will set a tone that this neighborhood celebrates the environment, outdoor living, and community. Entry monumentation, lighting, walks, and signage will all be incorporated to set a theme. There are also 2 secondary entrances into the area we've set aside for commercial development right on the corner. This will connect to the rest of the community as well with bike and pedestrian trails. Discussions for commercial development have included space for a farmer market and outdoor seating. This location can easily become a gathering area for the community as a whole. Both entries will lead past park areas to a community of homes and then to a large central green. This area will consist of tree save, a central recreation center, open play, and planned play areas. A recreation center may include fitness and a large pool for all ages. The tree save areas should be places for games like hide and seek, central play, as well as places for play equipment to be incorporated like swings and slides and exploration. An existing tree identification and trail system is in place on site. As the site develops, this system should be expanded and celebrated for educational purposes. It may also include identification of the watershed, Lebanon Run, and the significance for protection of that waterway. Simple overlooks and seating will also be planned around some of our large stormwater ponds. As you continue through the neighborhood, you'll see trail connections and sidewalks throughout, as well as connections planned to the Newport News Park Trail, to internal park areas, and connections to areas on site with historic significance. Seating areas, dog parks, and open play areas will be planned throughout. And we have some pictures that'll come up to show those ideas and thoughts. A common theme shall be developed with clear signage, landscape, and hardscape. A community designed among the trees is what we have in mind that can serve both homeowners and visitors alike. This will be a great destination for Newport News as we envision it. Derek, back to you.
Thank you, Brian and Melissa, for the great detail about the concept. That was a lot of information to get out there, and we will flip back shortly to the overall concept plan so folks can view in more detail at home. That concludes the formal part of this presentation. I know that we've received some questions from the chat, as well as some that were emailed in, and I'd now like to ask Ms. Sarah Bowman to share those questions for the panel.
Great, thank you, Derek. And I'm going to begin with a few questions that were emailed in. And Florence, this first one is to you. Why does the city want to develop Endview?
Well, it is a strategic property. We wanted a great impact. The Economic Development Authority purchased this property in the mid-90s with a mind toward doing quality development here. For at least 10 or 15 years, there was a citizen task force that was involved, and housing was our focus and our top priority. Newport News has the 3rd oldest housing stock in Hampton Roads. Finding opportunities, large-scale development for new housing is important. Being able to take advantage of the amenities. This is a lesser part of our city that is not as developed as other areas, but being adjacent to Newport News Park, seeing the opportunity to connect in with Newport News Park, the historic assets, the Endview House, Lee Hall Mansion, Villages of Lee Hall, It just creates a great opportunity for us to draw multi-generational individuals and families to stay in Newport News and grow in Newport News. It's a community that we're looking at being open to everyone. We're not looking at this being a gated community. Really trying to use the assets and amenities and things such as the Birthplace of America Trail to support the surrounding assets of the city and to make this community very special.
Thank you, Florence. And Jay on Facebook asked a really good question. Can someone on the panel please advise of the exact location that Endview will be located in Newport News? And I know that was in the presentation, but if somebody wants to just recap.
And I think if we can, this is Derek, if we can go back to the overall aerial slide, the 350 Yorktown Road property is located at the intersection of Jefferson Avenue and Yorktown Road. So it's toward the northern section of the city. And if you're familiar with the Endview House property, that EDA property surrounds it. So you can see on the slide here that it is that property that is outlined in red. To the right on the screen, that's Newport News Park. And then to the left is the housing for Yorktown Naval Weapons Station. So hopefully that gives a little more context about where exactly this property is located.
Thank you. Randy on Facebook is concerned about traffic at the intersection of Jefferson and Route 238, and then also asking about what is the plan for enlarging and improving the intersection at Jefferson and Yorktown Road to allow adequate flow for the increase of residents. Can somebody share the traffic plan or what you've done so far?
Through the process of rezoning, a traffic impact analysis will have to be done, and we know that'll be a substantial study that has to be completed, and that will give us direction on what improvements will have to be made to handle the traffic that will be produced from this site.
All right, Brian, I have a question that was emailed in to you. Will a historic style fencing be installed with access gates to define the historical boundaries of Endview and provide evening security?
We've given some thought to that during the master planning process, and there will be a combination of fencing and landscaping buffers along that area to provide a safe, secure buffer along the Endview boundaries. It's very important to us that we keep that buffer there for not only for security purposes, but more importantly for a nice view corridor to Endview from our parcel. So it's a good question.
All right, and we received a question that was emailed in and also just posted in the chat. Kate said, Endview is the oldest homestead in the United States. How will we continue to do war reenactments? And that was also emailed into us as well. Florence or Derek, did you want to comment?
We gave a lot of thought through the development of this concept to make sure that there was adequate area preserved around the Endview house parcel to be sure that that room remains in place to continue hosting those reenactments. In fact, we view that as one of the major amenities that would help complement the development of the Endview tract, serving as a resource for the folks living there as well as continue to be a draw for folks interested in visiting.
Great question too. A few of the questions that were emailed in talked about green space. That's a major question and concern. Somebody asked, can you spare enough green space so the rural feel of Endview is represented the way it was planned? And other people were asking about the green space and will more trees be added? Who would like to address that?
I believe I can speak to that. And of course, everybody needs to keep in mind that the Endview property itself, the historic property where the house is, all the fields and the associated surrounding fields around that home will be preserved, and it is really not part of this parcel at all. We'll be looking down to it from where the development parcel will be. So that kind of takes care of everything there. And as Melissa mentioned previously in her analogy of what we went through during the master planning process, we took a lot of time and spent a lot of time looking at tree save areas and archaeological significant areas that kind of impact our overall plan. And what we've done is taken those tree save areas and we've put them in our master plan as basically an area where the trees cannot be disturbed. And then we will add additional buffers and additional landscaping, walking trails, benches and things to enhance the tree safe area. So we'll be adding to the existing landscape significantly on the property.
Sarah, if I could add, when we went through the city stakeholders, the team that did the evaluation with our Economic Development Authority included Parks, Recreation and Tourism, Planning, Engineering, Development, Waterworks, a very robust team. One of the things that really excited us in working and part of the selection for Weldon Field Road was their concept had a lot of recognition of those assets in maintaining green space and did not try to develop a density that made this not fit within the surrounding area of the city, since this is a little less developed. And I think as we've gone through the process working with the team, they were very interested in understanding what the city's vision was for development here and really trying to be responsive and make this a special community. And so I think that has been something that we sort of take for granted. But as we went through the responses to the RFQ, that's really why this team rose to the top, and they have continued to meet with us. The one community listening session that we were able to have with the neighborhood, being able to hear some of the things that were important, and I think that you see that reflected in this concept plan.
Thank you, Florence and Brian. And Brian, I have another question, because you did mention the archaeological sites, and Sonia specifically asked, and so if you could just address this as a recap, will the archaeological sites be protected?
They will definitely be protected. We did an extensive study with Circa out of Williamsburg, who actually analyzed the entire site, identified all of the areas of archaeological significance, and we also took information and data that Derek and Florence and the city provided to us that they had as far as archaeological areas, and we will definitely be preserving those areas throughout the community, and they will be a complete area of avoidance for us at all times.
Thank you. Now, Matthew on Facebook said, looking at the overhead view, it looks like the historic plantation will lose some of its back field. What will happen to the readout in the backfield? I don't know if, Derek, you wanted to pull up the...
That's not accurate.
Okay.
I think might be hard to see on that area.
I'm not sure if you can see it on the concept plan, possibly. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see. But as I said earlier, and Derek, you can speak to this if you would like, but as I mentioned earlier, we're not impacting any of the existing fields that are part of the Endview proper property. Our parcel is completely separate from that, and all the current fields that remain around the Endview historic home will stay in place, and they'll be untouched by our development.
Great. And it can be a little difficult to see, so we will be posting this presentation on the city website and developments page, so look for it there. Melissa, we have a question that was emailed in to you. How will this development connect with Newport News Park?
Oh, that's a great question, and again, probably hard to see on the overall plan that we had. But what we are showing is a couple different connection points to the trail system that shares a boundary with us. So at the rear of our property, there are two specific areas where we can easily connect to the Newport News Park with trails, bike paths, and walking trails both. And those areas can be celebrated. We envision possibly benches and educational spots or areas that you can stop and pause from the park into the development. But we see a significant trail system that would continue through the neighborhood from the park.
And then Brian, going along with the bike riders, would it be a good idea to put essential services for bike riders using the trail to help the Lee Hall economy with more tourist revenue?
We honestly hadn't thought too much about that at this point. We're in the very preliminary planning stages, but again, that is a great idea and something we could consider. I think it makes great sense, and we'll put that on the talking points for our next development meeting. It's a great idea.
I think if I could add to that a little bit, we talked a lot about the alignment or contemplated alignment for the Birthplace of America Trail, and recognizing that that's going to be going through the property along that Dominion easement, but that with the commercial that's contemplated for the corner there of Jefferson and Yorktown Road, that there could be significant opportunities to have some amenities that would complement riders of the bike trail and those passing through the property.
Definitely.
And Brian, another question for you. Are you anticipating any type of education opportunities within the development with the proximity to Newport News Park and the Endview House?
The answer to that is definitely yes. This is a property that's one of the things that excited us. It's one of the many things that excited us about this property when it was first put in front of us to consider in the RFQ, because of the connectivity to the Newport News Park. The way the property actually envelops and surrounds the historic Endview property. We have so many different areas, and we're obviously going to do a large walking trail, biking trail network throughout the community. So we're in new ponds that would create stormwater management for our site. So on or around those ponds and throughout our walking trails and at the connectivity to Newport News Park, we will be having learning areas and education areas about local flora and things within the park. Also historical areas where we can talk about the significant archaeological areas within the site. So we will definitely be doing that. And when you walk through the trails of this community, we envision it to have multiple and many educational areas.
Now, I'm not sure who on the panel wants to tackle this question, but what is the timeline for this project?
Well, I guess I would lean to Derek or to Florence on that. As a development team, we're continually working every week to develop and massage the plan. But at this point, I would defer to Florence or Derek on that particular question.
I think it was, COVID-19 certainly had an impact on us getting back into the community. It's why we're excited to be able to be here tonight and share what is going forward. We've shared an update with City Council. A lot of the preliminary work, there's still a fair amount of due diligence that goes along with a development agreement along those lines, but wanted to show the responsiveness and the reaction to the community of some of the comments that had come forward so far. We're probably talking about progress in the next 6 months to really get into more specific site planning and get into a position that to tackle the rezoning and provide the information that's necessary to go along with the rezoning.
All right. And then anybody on the panel can really address this one. How would you characterize the major draw for people who may want to live in this community? What is the major draw for the Endview community?
Brian or Melissa, would you like to tackle that one?
I'll be glad to jump in here. Melissa, you can add if you'd like.
Sure.
Again, as I mentioned in my previous statements, we engaged a RDB residential data bank out of Suffolk, Virginia. They did an extensive analysis of our land plan, and they feel like that the things that we're actually implementing in the plan are the draws to the community. For example, consistency in architecture, people who are seeking social connection with their neighbors, and opportunity to enjoy community activities offered through inclusion of the passive and active amenities, with all the walking trails. Clubhouse will be planned for the community, and multiple other areas that are going to be very special and will attract people to the community. This will not be your typical planned urban development because we have things that most planned urban developments don't have. The Newport News Park, the Endview Plantation site. We're excited to be about creating a one-of-a-kind community, and when you have something that's one-of-a-kind like that, the buying public will be very interested and drawn to the property.
And I think, too, one of the phrases that came up as we were discussing the concept was a community that's nestled in the woods. If you look at the concept plan and how the property or the parcels are laid out, there's no parcel that's more than a few minutes walk to a green space, to a tree save area, to a green space. And I think, in my opinion, that'd be a major selling point for a lot of folks who want to have access to those outdoor amenities, especially coming out of the pandemic and knowing how valuable those things are.
Great. Now, Kate on Facebook asks, will the development involve any reduction in land from existing private homeowners in the area?
I can jump in. I think as the plan currently presented, is looking only at 350 Yorktown Road as that parcel's defined. So I think you say we're not contemplating taking land from any of the adjacent or surrounding homeowners through the development of, as this concept is laid out.
Thank you, Derek. And I know this is a little challenging due to COVID-19. That's why you're doing this virtual panel. But will there be additional opportunities for public input or public meetings about Endview?
Absolutely. I think we're going to continue to be engaged with the community as this progresses. I think, as Sarah, as you shared earlier, these slides and the recording will be posted on development's website following the session. And we're always welcome and encouraging feedback and input from stakeholders, residents, everyone. So please feel free to send us your thoughts and feedback.
And we did receive a question via email for Florence or Derek. Would there be plans to develop city property along Crawford Road towards the intersection of Crawford and Route 238?
So that's the intersection that's of Yorktown Road and Crawford Road. And that in particular was one of the view sheds and main entrances to Endview that we were looking to retain in the development of this concept. So as you can see on the concept plan, that area is shown not to be, or is shown as green space and not part of kind of the developed areas. So we're looking at maintaining that view shed for sort of that historic entryway into Endview.
And on Facebook, Beth Willis asks a great question. To complement the farmers market, is there any outside interest to bring in a major grocery store to this area?
The amount of commercial that is on to the area, yes. When you start to have more rooftops, then you'll be able to look at supporting grocery shopping operations. But the commercial area that we're envisioning in this at this point is small-scale neighborhood commercial, and so we believe the farmers market and some of the other activities will be there. But this is something as planning is working with the community to update the Lee Hall plan. We have heard that a grocery store is an important amenity and asset.
All right, and this question is actually for each of the panelists. What excites you the most about this project? Who wants to start?
I'm happy to start. What excites me the most about this is obviously I look at a lot of different properties throughout Virginia and North Carolina. I've been doing this for more years than I'd like to mention. But what I like about this is the significance of the historic area, the opportunity to connect to a park and the outdoor recreation that provides, as well as the enthusiasm of the owners of this property to incorporate tree save, to be able to set aside properties for active open play. I think, again, with realizing the significance of having active open areas right near your home and fun areas to be able to go out and celebrate the outdoors and the natural environment is so important. And as we drew this plan and were able to lay it out, having those amenities in place, open space, history, Lebanon Run, and the excitement that you'll just find along that waterway, and then being able to, the idea again, and it's just an idea, be able to have some commercial at the corner to be able to bike or walk to. This excites me. This is why I do what I do, because I think this type of planning is really the type of community we all would love to live in.
I think the property, it's hard to tell when you're looking at these pictures, has a lot of topography, lots of trees. So as we keep talking about looking at tree save and looking at the layout of the neighborhoods, preserving some of the trees that are there that are mature, that will give you the feeling that you're nestled in the woods, is important. The way that the developer is looking at sort of pods of neighborhoods. So you are out here where there will be the opportunity to connect with your neighbors, but you've got smaller little areas and enclaves. The entrances, you really go by trees and some natural areas before you get into the residential development. So I think what has excited me is this is very special place, and we've got a team that really recognizes that and is willing to work with us to maximize quality and to maximize the opportunity for young families to empty nesters.
Well, I'll take it from on this. My next note would be that Melissa and Florence basically stole my thunder. but I would say this though. Listen, when we first looked at this RFQ and it came out, and we realized where this property was and where it is actually positioned. In Weldon Field, we have looked at and worked on multiple communities from Texas to New York. And when we saw this particular property and realized, as Florence stated, you have topography, which is a lot of ups and downs on the property, which you typically do not see in the city of Newport News. You start seeing more of it as you go west. But this is on the western fringe of the city. And when you take that particular element and then you nestle it next to one of the finest city parks in the country, and it will very well run, groomed and beautiful, and have a city park at your back door that you can actually pedestrian connect to and be able to walk in and walk directly to from your home. That doesn't happen very often we haven't seen it in anything we've done over the years. And then also to be surrounded by the historic, one of the oldest home in the country, literally, as a backdrop with the history of Endview. We just felt like this property is so very special, and we just know with the nestled in the woods concept that Derek mentioned is one that we have talked about from the very beginning. There's a lot of homes that we're planning to develop in this community, but when you come up on Jefferson Avenue and at the corner, it's going to be tough to even see in there the way that Land Planning Solutions did the overall concept design. The entrances, everything is very well hidden, but when you enter into the community, I really do feel like it's going to be one of the most special communities in Hampton Roads. So we're very, very excited about it.
And I think for me, and I think Brian stole my thunder a little bit. I really don't know how often you get the opportunity to have a residential community so close and in the backyard of a park as great as Newport News Park, between the trail system connections and then also the Birthplace of America Trail. Having that connection and amenity there is going to be wonderful for those that love hiking, biking, being outdoors, on top of all the green and tree areas within the community itself. So I think folks are going to love being able to be close to nature and kind of have that right out of their back door. And I think with that concludes our session for the evening. I really want to thank everyone for taking their time out of their schedules to join us. And again, as we mentioned previously, we really look forward to and welcome continued feedback and engagement. The recording from this session, as well as the slides, will be posted online on the city's development website. And as you review that and look at the plans, please feel free to send any thoughts, feedback you have, and we'd appreciate any feedback you provide. With that, I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful evening. Thank you.